Hey there, hobby homesteaders. Welcome back to Peaks Peak. Today is going to be our first episode of a series I'd like to call Peak Speak, where I talk about whatever's on my mind. And today what's on my mind is owning property. Now guys, I'll be the first to tell you, no matter what the subject is, I don't consider myself an authority on it. But I think there are a lot of like-minded people out there. If you're following our channel, then you probably think a lot like me. Probably have a lot of the same interests, and so I thought today I would just talk about owning property and how it came to be that I owned property, why I wanted to own property, and maybe some things that I've learned that if you're in the market or you're searching for property might help you to get a better deal or be able to afford it just a little bit sooner. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, being a Christian man, owning property and things is not my number one priority. And it's not something that I want to get in the way of my spiritual life and serving God. But I think that we can have enjoyment here without doing that. And to me, one of the biggest blessings of owning land is being that much closer to God's creation and the beauty and the things that are all around us that He gave us to enjoy. So I grew up in a small town in southern Indiana on a couple of acres through most of my teenage years. And when I was about 16, my parents bought a 60-acre hobby farm where I got to get a little more serious about hunting and fishing and all those things. We had a little pond, and you know, I did some outdoor stuff before that and a little bit of hunting, but never really had a place to get serious about it until then. And so my upper teenage years were spent just playing on that playground of a farm that we had, and I really enjoyed that time in my life. And I got married young. Me and Jana married when we were 20, and she was a little homesick. She was from down in this area in Kentucky, and so we didn't stay in Indiana very long before we moved down here. And you know, land is one of those things that if you don't inherit it, man, it's hard to afford it. And it took me over 20 years of wanting to get to the point where I could own some land and get out and play again in the outdoors. But I always had it in the back of my mind that that was what I wanted to work toward. And as I got a little bit older and got my finances in order and got to a point where I felt like I could afford to make a move to some property, I kept an eye on all the real estate that was for sale. But you know, even then, affording any kind of acreage is very tough. And so I'll tell you, the biggest thing that we did that enabled us to afford to own 38 acres of our own was we found a place that had sat empty for a couple of years, and nobody had maintained any of the property. So when I called about the property, that nobody could even tell me where the property lines were, and they basically said, you know, that's up to you to figure it out. The house needed completely renovated. That's something that, you know, over the years I've learned to do a lot of things myself. So I knew that we could buy a house that needed everything and fix it up. So we were able to find this place and buy it for much, much less than if it was turnkey, ready to go kind of farm. And it really it made the whole experience a whole lot more fun, because I feel like we made it our own. When we first got this property, of course, we spent the first month, I wanted it to be more like 2 or 3 months, but our house sold so quickly that we had to be moving into this in a month. So we spent the first month renovating the house and kind of just scrambling so that we had a place to live. And once we got that finished, then we were able to kind of move to fixing the property up the way that we wanted it, cutting trails and hunting and all of those things. But we got to decide where the trails ran, and we cut all of those trails, and then we decided we wanted a pond, so we got to choose where we put the pond, have it dug. We wanted animals, we got to choose where to put the fences and build those. And so there were a lot of things that, while it was a lot of work, we got to learn from that experience of improving the property, and we got to have the enjoyment of picking those things out and making them the way that we wanted them. So I would say the biggest advice that I would give you if you want to own property is to decide how much that you can do for yourself and look for things that need those improvements that you're capable of doing. If you can do renovations and you find a house that needs gutted and renovated, find property that has a house on it that needs gutted and renovated, and you can save that amount of money. If you want property that has fences, but you can build fence, find property that's not ready to go, that doesn't have all the fences, that's got that extra cost built into it, and make the property what you want it to be. But of course, these are going to be the things that are different for everyone. You know, I can do some home renovations and do-it-yourself projects, but like, for example, I'm afraid of heights. So I would never look at a house that's 2-story that needs a roof and buy it, because I don't want to have to climb onto a roof that's 2 stories high. So you've got to decide what's within your realm of abilities. If you're looking to build a homestead and you want to have animals, you don't necessarily want to find a piece of property that already has a barn and all of the fences and all the chicken coops and everything ready to go, because that's likely going to be more expensive. And I think most people kind of get the cart before the horse, and they think they have to have all of those things in a piece of property. So when they search for it, they end up having to spend twice as much for the property because all of the work and expense has been done. Now, mind you, none of that stuff is free. So even if you do it yourself, it's going to cost you some money. So you have to figure that into it. But most of the time, if you can do the work yourself, then you're going to save at least half of the expense by doing the labor yourself. And that is what has enabled me to own property, is the fact that I can do some projects myself and save some money. We would have never been able to own this farm if we had to pay somebody to do all of the renovations and build the fence and all of those things that come with it. Now, the pond is one of those things that we had to hire to have it built, because I don't know how to operate heavy equipment. I don't own heavy equipment, and so by the time I rent it and run fuel through it and try to do it myself, I can assure you it would have cost me more to build this pond myself than hiring it done. But I'll tell you, owning property, especially if you have children, is one of the greatest things that you can do, because it allows them to get outside and get some exercise, and like I mentioned earlier, see the beauty in God's creation and enjoy the outdoors, learn how to hunt and fish, take care of animals. And like I mentioned in one of our videos the other day when me and Caden were up here working and cleaning up brush, is if you want anything nice, you got to work for it. I probably won't catch any fish today. It's like 38 degrees. It looks beautiful, but it's cold and windy. I've never had any luck catching fish in the cold up here, but I'm trying a little jerk bait. It's been a few months since I've hooked into a good fish. Be nice. Well, guys, that's probably going to do it for today's episode of Peak Speak. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed it, be sure to let me know. If you didn't, tell me shut up and drive my tractor, and that's what I'll do. But if you did enjoy it, then give me some ideas of what you'd like to talk about. I've got a lot of interests. I'm into a lot of things, so we can talk about cars and tractors and building and farming, whatever it is you're into. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good day.